Hello and welcome to SJU on this Wednesday as we say farewell to Hawkeye for now, maybe. We don't know for sure. And discuss the finale. I am Eric. I am Kim. And all of us, including everyone you're not seeing, are working on a day off because that's how much we care about you. And we're, obsessed with Marvel stuff. So
And Hawkeye, yes.
yes. Yeah, because our officially we're all out of the office right now. I mean, there is no office, but you know what I mean. But we're gonna talk about some Hawkeye here before we go our ways to enjoy merriment. So full spoilers for Hawkeye episode 6. That's the finale called So This Is Christmas? Question mark. So this is Christmas? So that's your spoiler warning again if you haven't seen it. All right. 3, 2, 1. Full spoiler zone for the Hawkeye finale. Kim, what'd you think of the Hawkeye finale?
Well, it was a mostly satisfying end that with a lot to enjoy, not least Clint and Yelena coming to some kind of emotional understanding, and Clint finally accepting Kate as his partner, which could be a little tease of more to come. And it finished where it started, which was with the Ronin suit. So that was a nice kind of way to wrap things up. But also a very interesting tease of who Laura, her identity, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yes.
But not much pizza dog. So that was a mark against it.
It goes down a notch.
Yeah, and a couple of narrative strands that I felt didn't quite tie up as satisfyingly as I'd like, but still room for some humor, and overall I loved it.
I think I'm very similar. I think this was a very satisfying conclusion as far as all the main storylines and the main characters. Certainly, obviously, Clint and Kate being our leads. Yelena only came in a couple episodes ago, but she's a big important character in the MCU now, and I think they did well by her. And I think it delivered on all its promise, even though I enjoyed I think episode 3 through 5 a little more, I still thought this was a satisfying conclusion. I do have some issues, and they're mostly related to the supporting characters and some of the things that happen with them, which I think you're similar. So we'll get into the minutia of all that there, and where we think they might have improved things. But yeah, overall, I definitely think, especially when you look at this as a 6-episode series, I'm like, no, it delivered on all the things I wanted and all the things it was about at its core, which is great. But let's talk about, you mentioned it's pretty early in this episode that there's a really nice moment where Clint just kind of says offhand, Kate, you're my partner. And then he's sticking around specifically at this point to help her. That it's like, because her mess is his mess. I love that. I thought it was great, and I thought they totally earned that they are just fully a duo now, a crime fighting archery duo. Did that land with you as well?
It did, yeah. I mean, you felt it throughout some of the earlier episodes, and certainly in the last episode, but the only thing was he was still unwilling to acknowledge it. But I know he felt it. He must have felt it, because we all did. Yeah. And it was a lovely moment. And one of the good things about that for me was I had felt from the start of this and throughout that this was going to be a limited series, and it would be Hawkeye, Clint handing over the bow, if you like, and then bowing out. But it feels now to me like we might get, at least one more season, perhaps, where they're teamed up and he continues to train her, because there was still some of that training on show in this episode. She wasn't fully kind of, there you go, you're on your own now.
No, not at all. Yeah, that was interesting, because I'd had a lot of discussions on Twitter with people about that, which is how much is this going to be like Jeremy Renner saying goodbye to Hawkeye? I never thought he was going to die. Both it just didn't feel like tonally it would fit this show. It would also completely undermine Tasha's sacrifice if he died in his next big adventure. But maybe he would much more sort of say I'm done, even though he could always come back. He would be more like, I'm done, I'm retired. But they didn't even do that, and I'm good with that. I think there's no reason to. I also think I'm 80% certain that the next time we see Kate will be on her own, because it's not like they have to do everything together. But it seems like he could just pop up again, and that we could get another adventure of the two of them.
Yeah, and kind of, we saw so much from him in this series that we haven't seen in the main MCU,
Yeah.
with regard, well, not only his sense of humor, which has been one of the highlights, the interplay between him and Kate Haley Steinfeld, but also his abilities. Who knew that he could do all of he was quite as advanced skills wise as he is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because it's like we never got to see him as like a highly adept shield agent before really he
Yeah.
started avenging. So yeah, way more context on all that, which I thought was great. We'll jump around a bit here. Let's talk about Kingpin, because obviously that's how the last episode left, which was like the big reveal. And it's become both one of the biggest question marks of this finale, and for some who assume one thing, something that's made them very angry, I think there is zero chance he's dead. There's zero chance he's dead. But what do you think about the off-screen gunshot that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that in itself raises questions. Certainly, I would say yes, he is not dead. But did he survive? Will he survive the gunshot, or did Maya not shoot him? Did she shoot, up in the sky or whatever? Because we know how, there's been throughout this series allusions to her mental state and her upbringing, and she's clearly had an affectionate relationship with dysfunctional for sure, but with Wilson Fisk. Maybe she couldn't bring herself to in the end. They do both say to each other earlier in the episode that they love each other.
Yeah. Or she shot him, and it could just be directly what the comic book did, which she shot him very early on in one of her first appearances that established everything about her and her dynamic with Kingpin. But he survived. He was temporarily blinded. He got better from that. But I think, even in the comic book, by the way, it was like an off-screen shot, like, off panel, I should say. So even, there's just no way to me that he's dead, but maybe he is wounded, that's what I think.
This episode is at great pains to set up this idea that he is pretty invincible. He's kind of inhumanly durable. We see him get shot in the chest with an arrow, and that brutal
hit by a car.
The car, yeah. And the explosion, and he survives all of that, gets up, walks away, and is still able to fight, so so there's a reason that it's set him up that way.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way they're like, hey, he's back, oh, we killed him. I mean, there's just to me, if I were a betting man, D'Onofrio is going to be in the Echo series. I just assumed that anyway before this week. And that fact that he was, we didn't see him die. I'm like, also because Echo, frankly, it's like she's a brand new character. She doesn't even have a ton of, comic book fans know her to some extent, but not a lot. So having Kingpin will be like a big sell on that show. I'm sure he's in it.
Yeah.
we'll see more of him. We'll get back to him, I think, a little bit as we talk more about the fight stuff going along. But let's talk about Yelena, who, we got, her storyline, of course, began in Black Widow, continued here. She had last week that great scene with Kate. I loved the stuff with her here. Her and Kate had that fantastic scene on the elevator, followed by their little fight that continued the chemistry between Haley Steinfeld and Florence Pugh, and a great dynamic between them. What did she say about, like, stop making me like you? And
yes.
But then her and Clint, great scene. It's so well acted with the two of them really finally like talking it through, working out everything about Natasha. What did you think of their confrontation on the ice?
Yeah, I think, we knew that was coming, that would have to happen in some way. And I think they executed it really well. I know, there are some people with some gripes over how she suddenly just kind of turned around and decided not to kill him, or, but I think it makes perfect sense to me that the more he talks, the more it's obvious that he had this love for her, this connection with her, and knew so much about her. And when he does the whistle for Yelena, that's the moment where it all clicks into place. And it was the emotional kind of resolution that Clint needed. It was like he was talking to his therapist, and yeah, I think certainly he's fixed now, but I wonder what's next for Yelena.
Yeah, I thought what also really sold it for her, obviously the whistle gets her to stop and listen to him. But
Mm,
then what he says, especially when he said nothing was going to stop her, which I think contextually would hit home for Yelena, being like,
yeah,
look, like it was her choice. I like that he even said, we fought for it, but she was better than me. Like she won that fight and then I couldn't stop her. Which
yeah,
A, does right by Natasha as a character to us, the audience, but B, does right by her to Yelena, who would I think believe that, it's like, okay, I believe that my sister was better in a fight than you and you just could not stop her from doing this thing that she wanted to do.
yes, yeah, that's believable.
Yeah, so I thought it was great. And yeah, of course, like Yelena kind of goes off still a little bit lost. We know she works for Valentina, but we don't know what, certainly she's gonna have some questions for Valentina, saying, hey, this guy killed
Yeah,
Natasha. I saw some people that were bugged that Valentina like wasn't mentioned or appear in this finale, but I just don't think it's needed. Like, we understand that Eleanor couldn't text Yelena directly and say kill an
yeah.
Avenger. There had to be someone powerful that would actually assign that to her. So I think that's just a question for another day. Were you okay with
Yeah,
Valentina being left for later?
I was. It did not need another strand brought in for sure. And yeah, that's part of the wider MCU. And you're quite right. I think that will be dealt with another day.
Yeah. I will say, as we're talking about Eleanor doing the hire, I did feel that ultimately I was disappointed by Eleanor as just a character. Just we kept
Yeah,
talking about, you don't hire Vera Farmiga just to be the mom. She has to be a secret villain, which turned out to be correct. But then it wasn't enough about. I don't know. It was it was so flimsy. Like, okay, her husband owed money. She started working for Wilson Fisk, never stopped. But I just
mhm.
didn't think there was anything really meaty there for her as an actress or her as a character.
No, I agree with you. And, there is a lot more they could have explored. Obviously, time constraints, I guess,
Mhm.
were one issue. But, I would have liked to have known how deep her involvement went. There was mention of her having paid off her debt tenfold. What happened there? Did she then choose to continue working for him, or was she just in so deep and he wouldn't let her out? But she feels okay to kind of confront him at this moment and say, I'm out, at which point he no longer wants her around. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, it just felt like we were too jumping in the middle. And
yeah,
yeah, since we never got a lot with her, it just put this sort of onus on the finale that they couldn't really pay off. Yeah, we care about Kate, obviously. We care that she's upset. But yeah, her Eleanor as a character. Now she didn't die, and she can always come back and get much more interesting nuance later. But it just felt
yeah.
like, man, Vera Farmiga was around for 6 episodes. Should have done a little more with her. Let me ask what you thought though of Jack, who it was interesting because we basically find out that he was complete patsy, just completely. He was in no way a bad guy. He was not partnering with her in any way. She just was going to throw him under the bus. But he stepped in. He he got to
Yeah.
swash that buckle. What'd you think of Jack in the
Oh
finale?
my God, I love Jack in this episode. Who knew that he'd turn into this thing for me? But yeah, he's gone from kind of this sleazy, suspicious character to naive and lovely. And I loved him swinging his sword. I think he says, and like showcasing this kind of innocent bravado. I think he says, "This is your time." He talks himself into getting out there with the sword, and I love that bit. And we had a hint of this nice side to him with that serenade that he did, which was strange, but it makes sense now having seen this final episode. And that was probably authentic. Well, it seems like it was authentic. And one of the things that I love most about him was that conversation he had with little Armand the Seventh. It is a seventh,
Yes.
isn't it? When he says, I saw you pee in the Hamptons. Everybody saw.
That was really funny. Him having this argument with this little brat was really great. Yeah, Tony Dalton, super fun. Yeah, and I'll throw in. We're going to get to more questions from the chat later on, but I'll throw in one here from Renee Jimenez, who asks, I know this deals with preconceived wants and unwarranted expectations, but I really wish that Tony Dalton's swordsman had been a real threat. I don't know. I just didn't need in the comics. First of all, he's gone back and forth a lot, but I just thought this was a fun thing with this character to just be like, I'm here and I'm gonna step in and have some fun. Did you want any more like danger from him, Cam? Or are you cool with this?
I didn't. I mean, I really didn't know what they were going to do with him. But like I said, I loved what they did with him in that final episode. So it worked out perfectly for me.
Yeah. The only thing I do wonder if they cut some stuff, because when him and Kate speak outside, when he kind of first steps in to help, she mentions about, I'm so sorry about my mom. As far as we saw, he didn't know Eleanor had framed him till that point. So it seems strange because he doesn't even have a reaction to it. So I do wonder, did they cut, like, it felt like maybe this, because this episode was a full hour anyway. So I wonder if they truncated some stuff, because it did seem strange that as much as he's a easygoing guy, you'd think he'd have a little more like, oh, my fiance betrayed me and was going to let me take the fall for that.
Well, you're right. But I assumed he's just so naive and easygoing, whatever, I've got my sword. I'm going to join these LARPers.
I'm going to join these LARPers. Yeah. Well, that was, by the way, yeah, I 100% think he's going to start hanging out with the LARPers, and that's how he'll get a version of the swordsman costume from the comic book. So you think we're going to see Jack embrace the LARPing life?
Yes. Well, yes, he was a little bit reluctant, but I think they can easily sway him.
I do have to say, I can't remember her name, the LARPer who made their costumes. Is it Mindy?
Missy.
She's damn good, because wasn't that like 2 days and she made 6 costumes because she made all the 4
and she pleased Clint as well.
Yes, yeah. So really, I mean, Missy, you're the MVP here. I mean, you should be on the Avengers payroll if you can make costumes that quickly.
Very elasticated.
That's right. I'll throw in one more actually as we're talking about the costumes, because I know James Bunt says, am I the only one sick of Marvel holding off the cool comic costume till the final episode of a series? I mean, I get it, but Hawkeye, I don't know. In this case, I thought it was fine because Clint's not known for like bombastic costumes, and Kate was wearing a version of her costume the whole time. So I don't think it's quite like the Scarlet Witch and Sam getting like their full costumes. It just was like Clint being like, I'll be your partner and wear the silly costume. Yeah. What would you think of the costume hold off here?
Yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, and especially for people maybe who are not as invested as us, people who are more casual viewers, it makes a really nice little fun touch. So I'm not going to criticize that.
Yeah, plus, and we even got, when I think about it, it's like Clint did wear the Ronin costume last week. So I think they peppered it in there just fine. Jumping around a little bit, I will say there was a lot more Tracksuit Mafia members than I ever expected for that final fight. I loved all the things with the trick arrows in the on the ice there. What did you think of the resolution with Maya and Kazi, which obviously happens first before she goes to Kingpin?
Yeah, well, I had an issue with her arc. Her story started strongly. We got the that opening sequence where we learn in a short space of time about her backstory, her childhood, and it was really emotional and hard-hitting. And I thought, I'm going to love this character and where she goes. And it kind of petered out. She started off as this kind of hard-assed assassin and became this wronged woman bent on revenge. And then she was in emotional turmoil, but there wasn't a lot to engage me in her story. I've always felt kind of at arm's length, and that she was quite two-dimensional in the end. And so that stuff with Kazi and Kingpin, I think, didn't really work that well for me. But I assume that they are setting her up more for her own series than exploring her in full here.
Yeah, I loved that first episode with her, and I think it was so effective at creating very quickly, giving us context for her and getting us to care about her backstory. So I liked her from the get-go. But yeah, I guess it's more like I didn't have issues with her as it went on, I guess, as much as the stuff around her that all seemed truncated. Like even with Kazi, because it's like, we know that they've been friends since they were children. And we get this little mentions from, Clint talking to Kazi that maybe he feels overlooked, that, she got put in charge after after her father was killed and not him. But there's so much weight put on their final sequence together. And it's like, don't have enough there. In fact, I was almost like surprised they killed him, because I thought he would be in the Echo show for sure. Whether he had, because we didn't know last week, absolutely, that he had helped Kingpin kill her father. She questioned him, but we didn't get like absolute answer on that. So I thought either way, I thought he could be back in the show. So yeah, it just felt like, this is supposed to have a lot more weight, but there weren't enough scenes between the two of them to fully make it emotional that she's, killing him. I'm sure I do agree with you though. It's like, I think her show will probably include more of her dad, more of Kazi, and Kingpin, like I said, in the present, alive, because he's not dead. I think we're gonna get more of all of that, here through flashbacks and present day stuff mixed in. But I do think in the finale, a couple scenes could have been, they wanted them to have a little more weight than they did, just because we didn't have enough, to feel the weight of that. Let me ask you about Laura, something we had speculated about, which, we do find out in the final moments of the show that was her watch, and pretty much that, we get the confirmation that she was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Did you like how that all came together?
Yes, I did, but I would have liked more exploration, and I hope that, well, do I hope? Yes, I hope that we'll get more about her backstory, or more involvement from her going forward. If there's another season, maybe she'll work more closely with Clint and Kate, and we'll learn about her time as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and that she was the number 19, isn't it, which belongs to Mockingbird. And and so if that is an allusion to her S.H.I.E.L.D. identity, then that rewrites what was set forth in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and kind of decanonizes that, doesn't it?
Well, I feel like it doesn't have to. It's that whole thing of like, it can all coexist if you want, because the quick comic books background for people who don't know is, in the comic books, Bobby Morse was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent 19, and she started calling herself Mockingbird, and then she married Hawkeye. We met Bobby Morse on the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., played by Adrienne Palicki, but she was never called Agent 19 or Mockingbird. So now they're saying Laura Barton was Agent 19. So it's like connecting her to that comic's history. But I think it's, again, I think this is going to happen all the time, where with the TV shows that Marvel Studios and Feige didn't make, where it's like, that stuff could still have happened unless we are directly contradicting it. So I think there's wiggle room here, right? It's like,
there's also
Laura Barton was Agent 19, but Bobby Morse could still exist,
Yeah. Well, there's also the old multiverse excuse. So
there's always that too. But I think for now, I think we can just say Bobby was Bobby, Laura was Laura. Maybe Bobby became the new Agent 19 after Laura retired.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe that watch doesn't actually belong to her. Maybe it does belong to Adrienne Palicki. And there
you go. I will say it felt like a plot hole, or just missing information, that while we get the resolution on the significance of the watch to the Bartons, we don't know why the Tracksuit Mafia wanted it. Like, how would they know to target that? Okay, we're breaking into this high stakes millionaires auction. Take the Ronin suit. Okay, I get that, but take this watch. That felt like a weird missing piece there.
Yes, it did. And I had thought at the beginning, actually, after the first episode, that the dog had eaten it, and we'd get a whole different finale with that reappearing.
Then it reminds me of Birds of Prey and waiting for the girl to poop to get back something important. I saw by the way, there's a lot of speculation, and I think there might be something to it, that Linda Cardellini, might have never shot with Jeremy Renner, probably because of COVID, and she was filming her own show. And that even though they're in a couple shots in the finale, they might have done some effects and using doubles. All of which is to say that I think that leaves room for them to explore the two of them together more, when there's not a global pandemic that they're shooting in the middle of, that made it very, very difficult. So we don't know that for sure. No one's like said, yes, this is correct. But I think watching the show and watching the finale, I think that might be correct. That might have been a real life reason they had to keep her on the phone the whole time. But I'd certainly be up for more of that dynamic. Let's see, anything lingering here for you that's jumping out? I think like we covered most of the big stuff. We'll go to a couple more questions. Oh, I have one question for you, Kim.
Go on.
In the MCU in 2024, as we know, is the NYPD just completely incompetent because so much happened before a cop showed up? Like, there were shots fired in this party of rich people, and that was the beginning of what would follow with a giant battle in Rockefeller Center.
I mean, maybe in 2024 the pandemic is still raging, and there are more people resisting the rules, and they were dealing with that.
Yeah, we don't know, because the snap affected things differently there. They have a whole different timetable. So yeah, you kind of have to just let it go that there's a long time where no one shows up to intervene. I was like, okay, the LARPers are all like first responders, and I guess you could try to like and explain that they were able to hold people off briefly, but
or maybe they were like, well, there's an Avenger in there, he's got it covered.
Right, don't worry, there's an Avenger going on there. What do you think of the mid-credit scene, which is obviously, and look, Marvel Studios has done this a mix all the time of like ones that are just for fun versus ones that are, oh my god, this is super important. So what did you think of getting the full I can do this all day musical performance?
I mean, at the risk of sounding like a right curmudgeon, I could have done without it. I saw enough of that with the first episode. Was it the first step that we saw it in? I think it was. And I did not need to see any more, but I enjoyed listening out for the lines about Hawkeye, which I have forgotten now, but I thought, oh, that's interesting. I was like, oh, what are they going to sing about him? And then, yeah, so that's
isn't it like he seems like a really nice guy? Like,
that's right.
It's like damning with faint praise. I was totally fine with it. It's just like a fun, goofy thing. And I like that this show is very self-contained. Like this, we talked about this was a lower stakes show from the get-go. It did connect to the greater MCU because it was following, obviously mostly with Yelena and sort of the aftermath of that and Natasha's death. But the show itself was not dealing with a giant this can change everything deal. So I was fine with it being self-contained and not having a huge spoiler, tease for something next. I just thought, my wife did too, we both expected they were going to cut to someone in the audience watching just to be fun, like Scott Lang or maybe Yelena, decided to see somewhere in New York and go to see a play.
You're right. Yeah. When I interviewed the director, he'd said that originally they had intended for Scott Lang to be there watching it with, Clint. But yes, he wasn't there. So,
and he gets a name drop in the finale when he says he has to ask Scott about how to get those guys back to full size. So,
yeah,
if they're not eaten by owls.
That's it. That's the dinner. They're gone.
Yeah, well, R.I.P. to a couple of the tracksuiters.
If they can get them out of the van, I suppose.
Yes. Oh, I liked the one tracksuit guy who stopped to thank Kate for her relationship advice in the middle of the play.
I was going to go and see with my girlfriend a terrible band, and now I'm going to go and see another terrible band. But she's happier.
Exactly.
Sorry to all the Imagine Dragons and Maroon 5 fans out there. That's just my opinion.
Exactly. Hey, everyone likes different stuff. Let me jump in here and a couple more questions here. Let's see. Well, this is just a general question with Xeno Hour here. Is the world finally ready to put some respect on Hawkeye's name? I mean, I went into this show already liking him. I think you did too, Kim, but I feel like the general consensus I'm seeing is this show made a lot of fans out of Clint that weren't before. What do you think he steps away from the show with?
Yes, definitely. And then that's really interesting because in the first episode we witnessed Kate seeing him in the Battle of New York, and that's what ignited her fandom, her Hawkeye fandom. And the show has set about, amongst other things, proving that he deserves that in her eyes and our eyes. And so, yeah, I think that's the legacy for Hawkeye.
Yeah, no, same here. Like, I think a lot of people, there were people that were like, why do we need this show? No one cares about Hawkeye. And I think it really sold people on the character, which is great. And which is why, as much as it was an amazing introduction for Kate, who's going to go on to great things in the MCU, I'm also glad that it's like people, it leaves the door open for plenty more with Clint. And I think we're going to get it.
And I think it proved his superhero credentials, which, we all know that he was a great archer, and that's why he was in the Avengers in the movies, but also he showed us all these I mentioned this already, but other things that he can do, and he really is kind of super powered, and he can even make trick arrows, albeit utilizing Stark tech and Pym tech.
But yeah, I mean, if you got that stuff around, you're going to use it. Yeah, I agree. They had we kind of jumped over the fact that they had a really great scene where she tells him she saw him during the Battle of New York. And how that kind of made him, basically tells him why he became her hero and made her inspired to become a hero because he didn't have superpowers. And I think, the finale works so well with that. And we got a payoff that we kind of had to, but I'm glad we did, of the coin toss trick he taught her.
Yes.
She uses to stop Kingpin. So that was all great. Madison J asks, you guys think there were too many storylines in the show? I thought it all came together, but I realized there were a lot more plot lines than I thought.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the answer to that, as much as I love the show and thought it was really well paced and very consistent, that I've said already that I wasn't that into Maya's storyline or arc. So I guess that would be my answer. Yeah, there maybe was one too many for me.
It's a little tricky for me. I think I was more into Maya's storyline than you, Kim, even though I also think that the finale showed some flaws with some of the pieces of it. But I think the middle of the show for me was where I started to realize like the Eleanor stuff had been pushed to the side for a while. And it all comes back. Look, at the end, everything is completely tied together. Like because it ends up being that Kingpin ends up being like the unifying force for all these characters, which is a fun thing. So I don't think there were too many storylines per se, but maybe they just weren't quite juggled. It just feels like the balance with Maya and Eleanor, we didn't quite get a fully satisfying version for either. It feels like maybe they just needed to figure that out a little more, or give us one more episode that could have like better filled in some gaps, I think, for the two of them. Because it wasn't like there was like a million other subplots, but yeah.
No.
That's where it stands out along. A lot of people, I see a couple people asking, Alan Preslin asking, where does Hawkeye rank with the other MCU TV shows? And I saw that Fiona Gilbert wants us to rate Hawkeye amongst all the MCU Disney Plus shows. This is the 5th, including What If. We got all in one year. Where does this one rank for you now that we have a nice sampling?
Yeah, I really struggle with between this and Loki. I love them both and they're so different. But maybe in terms of consistency, excuse me, and how much I enjoyed every episode, just sheer enjoyment, I might put this at number 1 with Loki just nudged into second spot.
I'm very similar, except WandaVision is my neck and neck, because WandaVision still sort of like, hit a certain sweet spot for me that the others haven't. Just like, it just clicked in with me in a certain way. But I saw someone saying earlier, and I agree, this was the most consistent of all of them. Like, even though we can say like some episodes were stronger than others, like it still felt very much like one piece, and there wasn't an episode that felt like, oh, they really kind of just went off and dropped the ball there. So yeah, this might squeak ahead of WandaVision. I have to give it a little more time. But it's neck and neck there.
And
but I think
so
that's
surprising, isn't it? It was so surprising to me, and really wowed me for that, because I went in with low expectations.
No, I think I was hopeful for the show, but I still, it just, the fact that it was smaller scale and whatnot, as much as I thought that can be fun, I still didn't expect, like, I don't know, it really, it just worked for me really well. And it just works really well altogether. Like I was thinking about this finale and how nothing happened that like was shocking. In fact, we had predicted, or even said we hope Kate goes home for Christmas with Clint and all and we got kind of all those things. But I'm like, this show, because it wasn't a show about like mysteries or gotchas, it felt like it played fair. So I wasn't like mad that we kind of saw these things coming. I just was like, good. I want to see Kate have Christmas with the Bishop. I mean, with Christmas with the Bartons. So
yeah, and Lucky got his name, which thrilled me.
Yeah. Lucky got his name, and he's going to get lots of well-deserved attention from all the kids. So.
He's the goodest boy.
Exactly, the very goodest boy. He needs his own. We're giving Groot a little spin-off series here. Let's give get a Lucky series. Give me an animated series, something.
With a cameo from Fanny.
There you go. I mean, yeah, they gotta hang out. Yeah, Yelena's got that. Who's taking care of Fanny during all this?
Exactly. Good point.
That is a
walking
question.
Fanny. Maybe, you know, Clint and Kate take their dog walking responsibilities seriously. Maybe they can pick up the slack there.
That's true. Yes, true. Or they can figure out like a whole system where like when you're on a mission, we'll take care of the dogs, and then yeah. Vice versa. I know I got actually as we're talking about this. Zeno Hour asked Kate and Yelena buddy movie when. if you could make that happen, Kim, when would that be?
ASAP. Definitely for 2022.
Yeah, I think they know they have a good thing there with the two of them. Again, we're so curious where they're going. Are we getting Young Avengers? Are we getting Thunderbolts? Are we getting a mixture of them? But one thing I think is for sure, Yelena and Kate will be on screen together again. Like Black Widow and Hawkeye and their new iterations will continue to team up. Sort of similar on the heels of that, Kim, James Bunt asks, with the time and effort put into these series, do you prefer this TV model, or would you have rather had a movie instead? I guess he's asking, would you prefer Hawkeye the movie, or do you like the way we got it?
I love the way we got this one, and Loki. If you mean, you know, you said plural, these series, I've loved Loki, and it just gives you time, or gives them time to explore the character more than in some kind of large scale 2-hour adventure on screen. I think I prefer getting more. Loki was a revelation to me. This has been a revelation to me. I've loved both character arcs. They've got room to be humorous, and I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, you know, when I look at these shows, the weakest one of them to me was Falcon and Winter Soldier, and that's the one that I also think maybe there was a stronger movie there because it seems so messy to me. But the rest all feel like, no, TV was the right place because, like you said, it's like we're focusing on characters that likely wouldn't have been given the spotlight anyway in the movies. And we're doing things like, you know, WandaVision getting so weird in a way that the movies frankly wouldn't do. They can't be that experimental as a movie that needs to make like hundreds of millions of dollars in box office sales. Yeah. So this just feels right. And like getting to spend this time with Kate and Clint just hanging out in a movie where they'd have to have way more streamlined and just like cut to the chase. And they've, you know, they're partners by a certain, you know, 50-minute mark or whatever. No, this I think was the right approach for these characters, and I think for a lot of these folks going forward. Any final thoughts here? Wrapping up our Hawkeye chat.
I just wanted to give a shout out to one of my favorite action. Well, it was not an action sequence, but the juxtaposition of each of Clint, Yelena, and Kate exiting that building via a wire, but via a line in some way. So Yelena's smooth abseil, Kate's very clunky but effective, and then Clint just all going wrong into the Christmas tree. That was spectacular.
Yes. A lot of they're gonna have to. There's a lot of cleanup to do anyway, but they'll have to clean up all those lines people left going out of that building. By the way, it was funny that because it all took place at Rockefeller Center and it was at like 30 Rock, there was so much Comcast and NBC logos all over this Disney Plus Marvel show.
I noticed that. That was so funny. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, hey, Peacock, we're doing you a solid by sending this here.
Tracy Morgan to come out. Where's Tracy Morgan?
Kenneth could have come out in his
costume. Get the pages involved. Yes.
Oh, and then we should mention that I liked that there was another Toy Story fight. We got the empty KB toys, but then Kate and Kingpin fight in the FAO Schwartz there. So it ties into Christmas. More Toy Story fights. Let's see. Ryan, I noticed just now that we have SG Rapness asking, what is the next Marvel show, Miss Marvel or Moon Knight? We don't know, except we've heard Miss Marvel's not till summer now. So it seems like it's going to be She-Hulk or Moon Knight. But we don't have a date for the next show, which is suspicious because I just can't see them waiting that long to give us another show, especially with Doctor Strange pushed to May. They're not going to make us wait till May for more Marvel. So we'll see.
If I had to bet, I'd say She-Hulk, but that's just because I know how long ago it was written and produced, and it seems like it could be done. But yeah, that's just a complete guess.
Right. Yeah. So we'll find out. But yeah, we'll be waiting with bated breath till we find out because we need our MCU fix, guys. We got it. Kim, thanks so much for jumping in on a day off to talk.
Pleasure. Thanks to you too.
No problem. Same for Ryan and Mikolaj and William in the background there. Thanks, guys, for doing this. We've mentioned before we are going to have a pre-tape on Monday, but then we're coming back one more time in the holidays a week from today to talk about the Book of Boba Fett premiere. So look for us in a week and enjoy your holidays and have a Merry Christmas if you're celebrating, and see you soon.